Today, we've got sustainability. We've got locally grown source dank stems and bud. We've got Stephen Lemieux. You'd better believe it. We've got integrity. But most of all, it tastes like shit. South Park starts now.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Look at the name on the show, Ryan, in the booth. It's South Park. Yes, we swear on the show.
Swearing.
Welcome. I am Christian Bladt, joined as always by the lovely talented ? No, both of those things are true. Steph Sabraw.
The Heidi of this panel.
She's so smart and funny.
So funny.
It's
so
hard
funny.
to be me
But
amongst these mere mortals.
The loveliest and talentedest at the panel, none other than Stephen Lemieux.
Guys, where was Rob Reiner? I needed Rob Reiner this episode.
We haven't had
Goo.
Steven since he decided to hijack the show with a Rick and Morty soundboard.
Yes,
Oh,
there was
jeez.
the Rick
Man,
and Morty
that
game
went
show.
over well.
Well, yeah, I thought
I was like, it felt like a 6-hour game show.
it was 20 minutes.
Felt like an
Literally 20
eternity.
minutes. Anyway, Stephen, it is an honor and a privilege to have you back here with us. I think that Stephen is here to just sort of clean things up because last week we talked about it. Was a real Heidi of an episode.
I was just really disappointed because, Christian, obviously, you are an anti-vaxxer yourself. Your kids are not vaccinated.
Now, why would they be?
And I have chased them with syringes before.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that it is not as difficult as South Park made it seem.
No, it's difficult, but they didn't squeal like pigs.
No, not
For
at
some
all.
reason,
They didn't
neighed-
rub themselves in Crisco
No.
either.
They neighed like horses, and they
As
had some
anti-vaxxer children do.
They neighed like horses and were covered head to toe in Nutella. I don't understand. It's completely different. But I think that this week was a real return to form here at South Park. This is South Park, where we do the show from. And as the non-regular, the irregular on the panel, I wanted to start with you, Stephen. What did you think of this episode?
I thought it was really good. I thought it was kind of interesting how on top of like something I straight up was talking about days before the episode aired, I produced Maria's show Better Together, and
Maria Menounos.
we pre-taped an interview with Christy Funk, who's like a breast cancer like the top breast cancer surgeon in the United States, and she was talking about how plant-based diets are better for the environment and how they actually help with keeping tumors from growing. And she started talking about impossible meat and those kind of things. And my question to her was, yeah, but as meat has become the industry and pumped full of chemicals to make it grow faster, as impossible meats and things like that become more and more popular, won't they just be as processed as those? And she's like, yeah, so you have to actually try and buy good, healthy food.
Yeah, right. So you have to do it now. Yeah, I know that Morgan Spurlock, who people know, did Super Size Me. He had a newer documentary with
Super Size Me Too.
Yeah, exactly. It was Super Size Me Too. And one of the things that they talked about is like, people get things slapped on labels like free range and organic, and they don't mean what you think they do. If you were to go and buy a chicken and it was prepared the way that you think, it is healthy, where it's actually grass-fed and it's not, it is completely cruelty-free, it would cost you like $25 for a chicken. And so I think that as the impossible market expands, I think we're going to get a lot of Goo Men, basically, as we saw in the episode.
I'm a Goo Man.
I'm a Goo Man. And what did you think of this episode as our special Goo Girl?
As the Goo Girl of the panel, I love this episode. There was so much shade thrown in every single... Yeah. There was multiple things that they were discussing and breaking down, I feel like, in the episode, and I loved it. It was South Park at its finest when they're just shitting on people.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I thought that, I have people all the time that tell me, it's like, well, why don't you try the Impossible Burger? And it's like, Burger King has one, Carl's Jr. has one, and if you're in another part of the country, it's Hardee's, it's the same place. And I'm just like, yeah, but I'm just not that interested in it. And then South Park, being my spirit animal as it is, pointed out, well, this tastes like shit. I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of what I expected.
Yeah, but you're eating plant-based.
Right, but it's plant-based
No,
shit.
how they did it, because I've had Impossible Burgers, and that's exactly the process of how you taste it. It first tastes like shit, and then you keep eating it, and you're like, damn, this is exactly like a hamburger.
Was there weed in the one you had?
No.
Or do you...
It's mulch.
Yeah,
It's mulch.
Yeah, you're right. It's mulch.
Yes. But I know that helped that, but they were trying ones before and confirmed the taste.
Well, it's psychologically interesting how marketing works with these things, right? And this is such a great, poignant statement on the hypocrisy of these industries. Because if you psychologically think something's better for you, you're going to convince yourself that it tastes okay enough that you're fine with it.
Sure.
And that's kind of what they're going with. Because, like, if you, like, I'll take it for the instance, the green smoothies. Like, I'll just convince myself that they're better for me, and it'll make me drink them even though they taste like garbage. to me, like, I just think they taste like garbage, but it's like, okay, like, whatever. If this is going to be better for me, I'll convince myself. With the Impossible Burgers, it's like, if I'm going to go to a burger joint and I'm expecting, like, a really nice, tasty burger, and it's not that tasty, I'm pissed.
Right.
But if I go to a burger joint, I'm like, all right, I'll try this and see if it tastes like a burger. It immediately lowers my standards enough that anything that I get, I'm just gonna be like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that. This is, of course, free promotion, but I know that Burger King actually has a deal where you can get a meal where it has a real Whopper and an Impossible Whopper, and it's called like the Taste Test Bundle or whatever. And I can just imagine, like, how many bites of the plant-based one would I get before I threw it away? But then also I thought, how many bites would I get of the regular Whopper before I threw that away? So I guess it's like, it really comes to what is your standard for, you know, how good does it need to taste? If you're eating at Burger King, you're obviously, your standards aren't necessarily where they need to be.
Well, just thank God that you can still slap plant-based on anything that you pump full of sodium. Thank God.
Like shitty beef?
Shitty beef? No, it's incredible shitty beef.
Incredible shitty beef.
Incredibly shitty
Incredibly
Mongolian
shitty
chicken.
Mongolian chicken. So, you know, but to your point about convincing yourself that that something tastes good because you need to, my sister has celiac disease, and like a decade ago, I was exposed to gluten-free cake for the first time. And this isn't like, I eat gluten because I'm trying to lose weight. Like, my sister gets sick if she. So I had it, and she's like, that cake was really good, and I'm just like, oh, she wasn't joking. I was just thinking, like, I would rather eat the box of that the cake came in. It was so bad.
Somebody brought vegan cookies. They were like chocolate chip oatmeal cookies to the studio the other day.
Right.
And like I found myself doing it. I like tried it. I'm like, oh, this tastes like garbage. And I'm like, oh, it's vegan, so it's pretty good for vegan.
Yeah, you just
Like, wait, this is not actually good. It's kind of gross.
Have you guys seen the girl who tastes the kombucha?
No, I have not.
You haven't seen that video, Ryan? If you can show it, it's not on YouTube or anything, but she's going through the
it's not on
process.
But it's not on YouTube.
So how's he gonna find it? If
It's
not
on
YouTube?
if you look up kombucha girl, I swear you will find it in seconds.
Okay.
I'm curious what this video is
She
with that
tries
title.
kombucha because it's healthy, and the way that she's going through the taste is exactly how you guys are. Watch. Okay, he'll play it in a few
So
seconds.
this is the kombucha girl for those that are just
Yeah,
listening.
she's trying it.
It really smells like a public restroom.
Yeah. Okay, this is way longer than I thought.
Sounds like
Smells like a public restroom.
You have to get to the end of
You know what?
Here we
Oh,
go.
I see. This is on TikTok.
No. Well,
So basically, that's the point.
Yes.
No. Well, yeah, and I think that they really hammered that home. I think that there was so much of that in the episode. Let's go through it a little bit. There wasn't a lot of callback to China, even though, as we'll talk about in our news, South Park continues to be in the news in China. Although, if you're living in China, you don't even know that South Park ever existed at this point. But
I think that it's interesting because they have drawn a fairly subtle comparison between the U.S. and China with this episode, in that what we're dealing with in China is all the human rights issues and how they're treating their people, and like how there's a lot of food issues in China as well. But with this, it's like, isn't America kind of doing the same to their people through the processed foods and everything like that? Aren't we kind of like, isn't that like a human rights issue in its own right?
Absolutely.
And it's all about business. Again, it's not the comparison between China and America, and that it's more the comparison between like business and the need for a market share and market value. Because what they're showing you is that health has always been $1 billion industry, but now it's like the Impossible meat. It's the same shit, but now that's a new $1 billion industry, and you have these oil drillers coming in, the There Will Be Blood guy, kind of touting the healthfulness just to make the money, even though it's the same shit. They don't actually have any vested interest in making people healthier at all.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I guess it's one of those things when you're here in the United States, you're like, well, we do a lot of things that are better, but how then there are plenty of things that you
Different
can point
kinds
to.
of rights issues, obviously.
Different kinds of
Yeah.
rights
But
issues.
they did draw a direct line to China in this episode, though, because Cartman, when he's talking about the quote where he says, yes, we do have freedom of speech, but at times there are ramifications for the negatives that can happen when you are not thinking about others and only thinking about yourself. So that's a direct quote from LeBron James, who was talking about the NBA and the Houston Rockets GM, I believe.
It was the GM.
And he's gotten a lot of flack for saying that because it was so self-centered.
Well, that's the thing, because if you're, I think that the GM of the Houston Rockets, if you're being reprimanded for, hey, don't comment on politics, you run a basketball team, but instead, what he's being chastised for is, how dare you come out in favor of democracy? Where do you think this is? And I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And by the way, before the show, Steph and I were talking about that we expect to be on some list in China. I went to China 5 years ago. I'm glad I got my trip to China in, because I feel like just talking about this.
I haven't had my trip to China.
I don't think we're gonna get it.
But that's why Stephen is here to be so pro-Chinese.
Yeah.
He's here to be the voice of reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just because Steph wants to go to Hong Kong Disneyland, So let's talk about just sort of this introduction of the idea of the school lunches. When Cartman is being served, and instead of, I believe it was supposed to be Sloppy Joe Day, it's fish, but of course the lunch lady, just to make us laugh, says fish, and he's
I
like,
miss Chef.
yeah, oh man, do I miss Chef. And then it's like, but who would complain about healthy eating and sustainability? And then Cartman has, of course, the perfect answer: the girls, the fucking girls. Steph is a girl. Did that surprise you that it was the girls who were creating all the trouble there in the school?
It wasn't just the girls, which they
well,
made
to start,
clear.
well, eventually, yeah.
They made clear that a lot of people want to be eating healthy. No, we're always ahead of the wave. we're ahead of the curve.
We're the new generation.
Yeah, I think it played out perfectly. Everything about Cartman's storyline this episode was so quintessentially Cartman at his strongest.
Yeah, I mean, he gets so angry and he basically has a heart attack. And both times that it happens, he comes to, fuck you, Wendy.
He's like,
It's just amazing that, and it's the exact same joke the second time, and I laughed even harder. What did you think about that introduction of the idea before we move on to the impossible meats?
I mean, I'm torn because it's obviously a commentary on kind of people trying to say what's better for everyone and trying to push their ideals on everyone, even though it's what they believe is better for everyone. But at the same time, what Trey Parker and Matt are showing through Cartman is that even though it's better for everyone, people would rather wallow in their own unhealthfulness than have anything change because of somebody else's opinion. Like, they'd rather be obese and have heart attacks and things like that than have anything forced on them that they don't want to adapt to.
They use the excuse of not having people force their opinions on them as a way to okay some of their not so great behaviors.
Well, and that's the funny thing when Mr. Mackey and PC Principal come to Cartman's defense, and that's why they keep the bad school lunch food in there, is like, we don't, think about how badly he could react. We don't want anything bad to happen to Cartman. We don't want anything unhealthy to happen to him. So of course the very blatant irony of that. So that's why we're going to continue shoveling garbage onto a tray and giving it to him. And of course, Cartman is so just the idea that there's a group of people that are something that stands in his way. I mean, that's basically what Cartman is all about. That's why he got his own restroom. I mean, if you think of all the examples of times where Cartman doesn't even care that much about something, but maybe it's like, oh wait, Kyle is in favor of this. Clearly I oppose it. I mean, we've seen that even as recently as last season. So I thought that it started off in a good place, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I just love the whole arc that they gave Cartman on this issue. And Stephen, I was kind of wondering what you thought about where Cartman goes throughout the course of the process, basically, of the impossible meats.
Well, I think they did a pretty good job of kind of having Cartman's storyline move forward alongside Randy's storyline with the cattle ranchers.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of like, how are the average Americans taking this news of, you know, the FDA is doing certain things to be really corrupt, and obviously politics are getting involved to be like, all right, well, we have to start making things healthier, and the FDA is fighting them. But meanwhile, the cattle ranchers having, you know, we've created an infrastructure where we're breeding all of these animals for a supply and demand of the current, like, infrastructure of America. So it's like, do you really, I don't know. It's like really hard to kind of put into words how you feel about it, because I feel like I haven't like sat down and be like, where are the analogies? How have they created this metaphor for the current state of things? I don't know. I feel like I've kind of lost my train of thought thinking about all of the
you're just
things.
trying to figure out what exactly it is, you know, that it's sometimes they're saying Trey and Matt are saying so many things at once.
Right.
It's hard to keep track of like, well, I think they're saying that about this. This is why it's such a great show, because, you know, it was season 23. You could definitely be phoning it in right now, you know? I don't even know if they actually still write NCIS. I think they just show up and they film a bunch of scenes and then they put it on the air. They don't care. People just tune in for anything. But I think the fact that Trey and Matt put so much time into this show, and they're clearly smarter than me. I won't speak for either of you, but that it's just like, it's always so impressive. Let's take it back to Randy, who is... we're talking about spirit animals, Steph. I think Randy's yours. And I love that we sort of end up right back where we were at the beginning of last week's episode, to the extent that I thought I was watching last week's episode for a second, where he's sitting there at the table.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're screwed because they're not getting that sweet Chinese money. And Shelley, of course, hates marijuana. I think that's her go-to thing. And the idea that, of course, Towley. This has been a great Towley.
Yeah,
season,
let's just get rid of our entire marketing budget, Sharon. That's a great idea.
Yeah, right. It's like, well, maybe if you didn't throw yourself parades and take out full page ads. Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's just the way his whole family barely tolerates Randy, but yet he's still there. You know, I can't imagine what it would take for Randy to actually get kicked out. You know, I think Sharon, it's just like, it's just not worth it to her, you know. But what did you think about how Randy basically stumbled into this idea of what's an Impossible Burger? Wow, this really tastes like shit.
Plant-based.
Yeah.
Him and Cartman are the ultimate masterminds. They exploit every avenue that they possibly can, and this one was no different. As soon as he started repeating plant-based, I was like, oh, they're going after the terminology, which Stephen was talking about, how everyone buys into regardless of how it's made or how good it is for you. So it made complete sense. And the way they wrap it up at the end, with both sides of Cartman being really extreme and him being really extreme, and not really caring what they don't even know what they're fighting for. They just want whatever they want, which for Randy was money.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's just in general, people don't even know what they're fighting for. They just know that they're there to fight. Stephen, what did you think about Randy when he's giving the presentation to the whole town? There's two moments that stand out. He talked about how eating meat doesn't just hurt animals, it hurts people. And then also, he just completely loses his train of thought because he's been eating Integrity burgers, and he like answers a question that no one asked, and he's wandering around on the stage.
It's just Randy in Randy form. It's just it's really awesome. It's straight up. It's just brilliant. Like, I think that's what you mean when you say that the show's back to form. Yeah. Is because, you know...
Literally, they had one off episode for me, and Stephen is inclined to agree. But yeah, then they're right back to it this week.
Well, that and just, like, I think the ending was the big statement with Randy in terms of, like, they announced that, like, they show the video of him just shooting all the cattle.
Yes, of course.
And everyone's, like, up in arms and stuff. It's like... I mean, that's going on anyway. You're basically doing that by supporting the plant-based diet because, like, there's all these animals. Like, what are they going to do with them? They're going to just kill them.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to set the cows free.
Right.
And that's why it's so funny that the rancher, also completely underrated character in this episode.
Part of the Goo Men squad.
Yeah, exactly. Part of the Goo Men squad. It's just he brings the 300 cows over. And that's like, yeah, exactly. It's like, so what are we going to do? Like, you know, if you want to make like a generational change of like, well, we'll breed less animals, all that's like, that's one thing, but they're alive now, so it's like they're gonna just hang out outside the slaughterhouse and not go in.
I think you guys are kind of jumping ahead. I think that if we have this much cattle, the point is, I think they are making a little play to that, but I think realistically, if it's about lessening the demand. So cows just don't die because we don't kill them instantly. Like, we just keep them alive until we offer what the demand is
until
needed.
They can be prepared for delicious veal. Absolutely. Go on.
I'm just saying, I think that wouldn't actually happen. You would just slaughter the cows when people need them, but the demand would lower, so it would be at a lower rate. Thank you so much, Ryan.
That actually was Rosie. That was the smartest thing that Ryan has said in all the shows that he's produced. And he usually says good things. It's just that was smarter.
I think it's different though, because it's not a demand changing. And that's the irony with Burger King. That's why it's great to show Burger King, because it's not phasing one out and lowering the demand for one while raising the demand for the other. It is creating a whole new industry where these Goo Men are coming, and the Goo Men are creating this industry, and it's just as bad as the other industry. So instead, that's what they're showing with the processing. It's just as bad for the environment. It's like, straight up, we have the cattle industry, and we have now.
It's not just as bad for the environment.
I mean, it's fairly terrible too, but
I think it's comparatively bad for us.
So I would say here's the reason why it's worse for the environment, because the infrastructure of the beef, the meat industry, the cattle industry is still there. So you're adding to it.
Yeah.
If you're able to look at a time where you have transitioned to one, or you've evened them out, then you could make that case. But right now, you're just sort of making it worse. It's like people, driving around the first generation of Priuses, like, oh my God, think about how green I am. Think about how much less gas I buy. But then you have like a toxic battery that goes and sits in a landfill, So it's like you really just saved yourself some money on gas. And I realize that's not the point of this episode, but it's a similar idea, So, and I think that's just why it's so funny. I also, since you mentioned Burger King again, just Randy sitting out there in the parking lot also selling burgers. And the guy comes out, he's like, I have plant-based burgers too. And of course, the Goo Man insisting on calling him HW, I thought was very funny.
Stephen showed me There
Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, Stephen, were you surprised that there wasn't a drink your milkshake up moment in this episode?
I don't know if this is the last we've seen of the Goo Man. That's what I'm kind of...
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
I feel like we have to get the Burger King guy killed in the next episode.
It's true.
If he's treating him like that, like it's a combination between HW and the preacher, I'd love to see that.
Do I have to watch the movie before next week?
I recommend it.
It's a good movie. It's I don't know. It's Paul Thomas Anderson, so it's a little bit longer than it needs to be, but it not in the way where, I mean, there's a point in Magnolia where I'll tell you the minute where you just turn it off and you'll be like, wow, that was a pretty good movie.
I think I know what minute.
Is when it starts raining frogs. Spoiler. Yeah, so I don't know. I would hope that we see him again. But I actually hadn't thought about that until you said it. So,
well, do you think there's going to be ramifications of the video of Randy shooting all the cattle?
I would think so. And I mean, let's talk about that sequence, by the way, because I mean, it was brutal. Not just Towley's riding a cow and he shoots him in the head. Randy gets bored, so he takes a bat. And, he's still got his gun, but he just beats the thing to death with a bat. And they take out 300. We know there were 300 cows there.
It's just no logic, all impulse.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you just summarized Randy Marsh and myself, by the way. But
all logic.
No logic, all
no
impulse.
Logic, all impulse.
Yeah.
Impulse.
Well, no, you were right. You were right the first time. She was right the first time.
My bad.
My bad. But I don't know. As you're watching that, and I watched this episode without Steph. I texted you last night while I was watching it, and that was the sequence where I said, I can't wait for you to see this. So tell us about watching Randy and Towley slaughter 300 cows.
My God, what in the world? That's what I love and hate about Randy. It's these decisions where I'm like, how did we get here? How did we get here? And I'm surprised Towley, who's been the voice of reason this season, actually suggested, kind of implanted this idea. But I thought it was classic Randy.
To be fair, tally is always high. So,
all blood and gore.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like people don't really realize how large the industries are.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right.
Like,
yeah.
I don't think people realize that
This
300 cows are not a lot.
Oh no! I mean, look, if
like-
you've driven from Los Angeles to San Francisco, there's that one stop where like you're 10 miles away and you smell the cow shit.
Stinky.
There's so many cows out the window. I mean, I don't know. Is that 3,000? I don't even know how many are there. 300. I mean, it wouldn't look like a lot if you took like a photo from a drone over 300 cows. It's nothing.
Well, I
would
wonder
say.
if there's a bigger statement being made in this scene too, because I don't know if there's, some of these Goo Men plants are owned by the same people who do the cattle. Where people don't realize that businessmen in the meat industry do not see animals as living things, and I don't think people realize that.
Yeah.
And if you want to be honest, like if you're in that industry, you almost can't.
Yeah,
because
animals,
of what you do.
Animals in this industry are product. They're the same as like a light bulb on a shelf.
Yeah.
And if you suddenly need to clear out, let's say, 5,000 acres of land to start growing plant-based goo, you're not going to be like, all right, let's move these light bulbs to another place. Let's say, okay, well, we can afford this because it's going to get a rise in profits. Let's just kill it all. They're 86ing property. They're 86ing their livestock they don't need anymore by killing them. I mean, my dad works for the EPA, and you would be amazed at the amount of animal waste of just like carcasses that don't go to sale or carcasses they don't use. Like my dad works with these huge processing plants out in North Carolina and out in Virginia, and they go out there and it's like 17,000 pig carcasses that are just waste food. They're just waste carcasses that something was wrong with them, or they died, or it was like a outbreak of something that just didn't go to sale. Like 300 cows is nothing. Like the scale is much higher than anyone can even perceive, and that's why people have a very solid case for veganism and things like that, because like the meat industry is gigantic, but they're legitimately killing tens to hundreds of thousands of animals every single day.
Right.
So clearing out a field and killing 10,000, 15,000 more cows is not really a dent in their budget at all.
Right, and I think the difference is that we actually saw it. And by the way, it was a cartoon, so it was easy to watch. Just imagine.
Was it easy to watch, Steph? Did you enjoy watching that?
No, I did not like watching it. It was triggering.
I would have loved to have watched it with you. And I would have paused it, and I would have been like, Steph, hang on. I got to go across the street to get a burger to eat while I watch this.
Oh my, you are nasty.
What?
I don't
like
eat
what I like.
meat, so I
So you're so much better than us.
I was the Wendy of this episode.
Fuck you, Wendy.
Exactly. I was just envisioning you two saying that.
Well, it's kind of what I say every week on the show anyway.
I mean, we're just going towards Snowpiercer. Just grinding up roaches and
worst
crickets
movie.
into little black bars that we eat. That's what the Impossible Burgers are.
I don't eat them.
You don't eat.
They're really good. Honestly, they're so good. It's probably because I haven't eaten meat in a while, so I'm not like craving a burger, because what you were saying is probably true. No one who eats meat would like them, but I don't eat them because they're so bad, and that's the irony of it.
I mean, the irony is that like meat's not even that good anymore.
Well,
Like,
the meat we're talking about, that if we're talking about Burger King, or even you're talking about even if you're talking about like a chain restaurant. So if you get a burger at like, I don't know, Chili's, TGI Fridays, it's going to be a little bit nicer than at like Burger King, but it's still not very good quality meat.
No.
If you go to, speaking of the drive up to San Francisco, if you stop at like Harris Ranch, where the steak that you get probably had been mooing earlier that afternoon, it's so fresh, and you're just like, oh my God, it's so different. But most people don't have the opportunity to get their food like that. And I know, Steph, you're judging me, but
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've bred the flavor out of meat. Honestly, if you go,
I think you're right.
If
Yeah.
you go to Germany or you go to a European country and you have like a real steak that hasn't been loaded full of chemicals for the last 18 generations of its steakness, it's gonna be flavorful. It's gonna have a completely different taste than you're used to, and you're gonna be like, wow, that was a steak. You go to Outback Steakhouse here, you're getting people are buying meat for the texture more than they're buying it for the flavor anyway, and that's why Impossible Burgers work, is because nobody's even used to a good steak anymore.
Right.
Only people who live out on farms and can have it, or who go to those ranch houses or the saddle, like the big places that literally slaughter their own cattle, are you getting meat that's not had all of its flavor bred out of it.
So let's talk about Cartman. When when it's taco day, everyone has a big sigh of relief because he eats it, and like he's crunching some very funny, exaggerated, long drawn out crunching, and personally I'm like, oh, he's gonna lose it when he realizes that this isn't real meat, and instead he's like, hey, you guys see that Joker movie? And it just made me laugh so loud. And like, oh, thank God. And so there's that moment where he's like, okay, but then let's finally bring it back to the Cartman at the end of the episode, who's like, look, I just want to be able to eat garbage, and this is garbage too.
I just don't want change.
Yeah, I just don't want change. So this is also garbage, you know. And so it's like, so yeah, this is fine. What did you think about that message, Steph?
I thought I love when they do this, when you think they're going to go one way, which is, I thought Cartman would throw a temper tantrum and burn down the school, but instead he wanted to almost profit off of it, and he understands it. He respects the business of it. But I also loved the Taco Tuesday being another jab at LeBron James, because he does do Taco Tuesday every week, and he even wanted to copy.
He wanted to trademark Taco Tuesday.
Crazy.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So loved it. Cartman was so awesome and horrible this episode.
And he says it turns out that goo is also processed crap that comes in a box, and that's all he really wants. And Stephen, isn't that what it comes down to? We're Americans. We just want processed crap that comes in a box.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more that people have a defense mechanism right now so much.
Yeah.
Of people are trying to change me. People are trying to change my diet against my will. And I think that's what this was really representing, is that like there's a lot of like people who they don't really care what they're eating as long as they have the right to choose it, and it's not just like somebody's shoving health food crap down their throats.
Yeah, I think that, you know, when you tell somebody, it's like, well, you know, this, I don't know, this workplace is going to be all vegan on Fridays or whatever. You're like, no, but I don't want that. But if you had like every day there was the same menu, but also the vegan menu, then maybe somebody would be like, well, you know, people in the office are saying it's good. Let me try it. It's the idea that you're being forced to do something. And then that's where we, again, as Americans are like,
resist.
No, how dare you? I mean, you know, look, this is a country that was built on a few cents added to our breakfast beverage. And to steal a joke from my boss, Dennis Miller, it wasn't even coffee. This was about taxing tea. And like, how dare you? We want our tea for free. So it's like, yeah, it's in our blood. There will be blood. But it's just, that's what we do. And we don't want to be told what to do.
Well,
maybe we'll find our way to making healthier and better choices. I think in a lot of ways that people have, you know, they are, everybody no, but I think there are a lot of people that are a little bit more health conscious, that it's like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to treat myself to this cheeseburger and fries and not have that, you know, 3 nights out of the week or whatever.
Well, people's lives right now are so full of stress and so full of like the fear of the unknown and this whole existential crisis I feel like everyone deals with every single day of their lives, that minor inconveniences are so blown out of proportion. It's like in LA, somebody got hit on the road and like was killed, and they closed down the highway, all 4 lanes of traffic, for 12 hours.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my mom like, man, it's really upsetting that somebody's death caused everyone a minor inconvenience. It's because it's like, you know, like we should be willing to change and be, you know, flexible for, you know, one person.
Like understand what's more important.
But I mean, that's a perfect metaphor for America. We are a nation of, I can't believe that some motherfucker died on this road, and now I have to sit in traffic for 20 extra minutes.
It's like if I'm on a plane and somebody on the plane's allergic to peanuts, I'm like, I don't get peanuts. This is bullshit.
Who wants pretzels
let
on a
that person die. Like, I mean, we all just feel entitled in certain ways because we were born into this like amazing level of freedom. Yeah. So we've created this entitlement to like, you know, you guys can be healthy if you want, but I'm going to go ahead and be unhealthy because it's my right to be unhealthy. And that's kind of Cartman. It's like, it's my right to be unhealthy. Oh, you're not making me healthy. we're all just unhealthy together, okay, cool, I'm good with that. If you just want to be good for the environment, sure, whatever, great, but I want to be unhealthy.
Right. Just let me continue to be healthy. Well, speaking of freedoms and rights, Steph, let's transition over
One
to...
second,
Yeah.
because I know you're going to go to news and gossip, but I wanted to give a shout out to the title of the episode, which is Let Them Eat Goo. And that's obviously a reference to Let Them Eat Cake.
Correct.
Which is the huge saying that's attributed to Marie Antoinette.
Yeah.
And it's referencing the princess's disregard for the peasants or her poor understanding of their situation.
Right, because what the problem was that there was no bread. And so this is what she said. She said, well, if there's no bread, let them eat cake. So it's just like not understanding the idea.
Well, they want healthy food. Well, there's no healthy food. Well, let them eat goo.
Let them eat goo.
Mr. Jami in the chat says chicken
Mr.
burgers
Jami.
are the best. So I think he would say let them eat chicken. But we do appreciate you being
No,
in
I
the
appreciate
chat.
that, yeah.
And side note, you guys, thank you for tuning in to our South Park After Show every week. If you're listening on iTunes, please give us a 5-star review and 5-star rating. Leave us a review. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us that thumbs up and leave us a comment so we can keep the conversation going.
And as every week we always find, no, this video does not have the episode in it. But thanks for sticking around to the end.
Wait, what?
Yeah, can you believe it?
Every week people are like, "Where's the episode?"
Wait, there's not a website you can go to every single week to watch the newest episode of South Park called southparkstudios.com? What?
What?
Blasphemy. Let's do
think it's
news
all-
and gossip.
I think it's also on Hulu.
AfterBuzz TV News.
So interesting.
Yes.
Speaking of China and all of its controversy,
China.
the saga continues with our dear DJ friend Zed.
We all know
is a
Zed.
world-renowned DJ. You might know him. If you don't, check him out. He's pretty cool. But anyways, he liked a tweet from South Park, and it was one of the more innocent tweets, just announcing the 300th episode.
Yeah.
China got a hold of that, and now Zed has been blacklisted from. He's on the no-fly list to China. So. Word travels fast. Christian and I are definitely outlawed.
I would think so. Stephen has continued to be very pro-China, so Stephen is still welcome there. Anytime.
Sorry, I use an iPhone.
Oh well, I use an iPhone too. So
And-
how could I not be more China?
When Zed
pro-China?
found out, if you guys saw the tweet that was up, he said, I just got permanently banned from China because I liked a South Park tweet. That's pretty iconic. I hope they throw him in an episode.
Is that like a PR job in China? It's like, hey, look for tweets. Okay, anyone who liked this tweet, ban them. And
Ban
send them
them.
what's that letter look like?
Yeah, I mean, how do you know that you have been banned from China? And did Zed have like an upcoming gig? You know, was he doing New Year's Eve in Beijing? You know, I mean,
Here, I know how we can figure it out, guys. So you can email us your social security number, and I will put it through my process to find out if you've been banned from China.
That's so thoughtful
No,
of you.
I will
But-
do that, and if you
but for that
include your credit
conveni-
card number,
yeah.
I'll even send you a plaque.
I was going to say for their convenience, they should certainly give you their
Exactly.
credit card number. Well, that does it for this week in South Park.
We have an iTunes review.
We do. Oh,
We
I
do.
would love to hear
Did
that.
you shout them out recently, or
Not this week. Not
in a while,
Not
huh?
this season. Let's put it
we
that
have
way.
Nin Skitty says, I actually really like this podcast. I like the actually. I
Well, because
actually
it's so hard to believe because
really
Steph
like
is
this
on
po-
it.
It's
Yeah.
very.
Yeah.
She's funny and smart, Christian.
She's so funny
Hold
and so
your
smart.
hold your judgment.
You're right. You're right.
It makes a lot of good points, and I listen to it a lot. I would definitely recommend this to someone if they asked for a South Park podcast.
Thank you. And what was that person's name?
Nin Skitty.
Nin Skitty.
And then we have
Nimsy!
Mimsy.
a less excited. That's
Oh.
from last year, though.
Oh, that's all right. If they're not excited, I want
They
to hear
said they said we're hilarious, but not because we're funny.
it. But see, here's the thing. That's true. We are hilarious, but it is not because we're funny.
This podcast is hilarious to listen to if you are a South Park fan. Watch the current episode and absorb all the beautiful satirical visual poetry from Matt, Trey, and their brilliant team. Then listen to a few narcissists try to relate all their idealistic thoughts to it. Meanwhile, they'll completely miss the fact that every South Park fan is laughing because Matt and Trey so brilliantly demonstrate why their idealism is so disgraceful week after week, year after year.
Yeah, but that's when Phil was still on the show, so obviously that was really what the problem was.
And Steph wasn't funny and smart back
No.
then, but now
So
Steph,
some weeks she was funny or smart, but now she's both.
yeah,
Yes.
we have
and-
Steph in true form.
Yeah. Exactly.
Guys, do we want to do a taste test next week of the Impossible Burger?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would do that for sure.
And I'll
but
use,
it has to be from Burger King. Because,
Do we have a Burger King?
Yeah, there's one on Victory. Not that I.
Victory.
Not that I
And if we can find some like CBD mustard or mayo or something,
that's a great idea.
And we can make a true Tegrity burger.
yeah.
Whoa.
Now you would have a meatless Tegrity burger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, a Tegrity
yeah.
burger.
Well,
is
that's true.
meatless,
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Yeah, by definition.
Yes.
This is a great idea. So, Stephen, does that mean you're going to be back next week?
Possibly.
You're like, well, it depends. Are there burgers?
I mean, people
Possibly.
hate me on this show, so maybe.
But apparently people don't like any of us.
Yeah.
So, that's true. People spent the last 2 seasons asking where you've been, and now you're back, and
That's true.
they're probably going to say,
They're
like,
fairly upset.
they're like, we're good. But if people do want to keep in touch with you, Stephen, where would they find you?
Well, I'm not Joe Biden's son, so they won't find me on a board for Chinese.
Or in the Ukraine.
Or in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
You can find me every week doing the Mr. Robot Show here.
I didn't realize that. Steph, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Steph Sabraw. And a friendly reminder that we are just 2 weeks away
Oh my God.
from Jack and Crack Witch Week.
Oh man.
I don't even have the jack. I've got plenty of crack and all,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't have the jack yet.
How are you on a Chinese board right now, though you're banned? How does that work?
We'll figure it out.
You work remotely?
Yes.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ and check out the 250th episode of Marvel Movie News over on the Popcorn Talk Network. I wore a costume and I was very proud of myself, but you'll have to tune in to find out. But that's it for this week. We will see you next week. Until then, stay integrity.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.